Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Shots Fired podcast. This week, we're doing things a little different. Kyle and I are going to break it down 4 incidents, viral videos of law enforcement that's gone across the country. First, we're going to talk about the Burning Man incident. That's been pretty viral right now. It's the park ranger that crashed through the barricade, pulled his gun on a lady and pulled her out. Then we're going to be talking about the 132 mile an hour pursuit. Yes, 132 mile an hour pursuit through downtown Atlanta, what resulted in a pit maneuver and a car crash. Then the viral video, the officer that does a pit maneuver jumps on the hood of his car and then yanks the driver out and handcuffs him. And then we're going to end on talking about if drones are actually starting to be used to invade your privacy. That's this week on the Shots Fired podcast.
Hey, 4-hour, shots fired.
Copy, additional shot fired.
Shots fired, shots fired. Shooting at us.
Suspect shooting at officer.
Down. He's at the base of the stairs, white t-shirt, white male.
Okay, before we get started into some of these video breakdowns, we just want to throw a disclaimer out there that our opinions may not be in line with somebody else's opinions. Some of these videos went viral online, and if you see on some of social media platforms, a lot of people are commenting saying that these videos are really cool. Some people have their own, biases and opinions on these. We're here to offer you an unbiased opinion on what we think, how these videos broke down, and where we think maybe some tactics and training can improve. With that said, let's kick it off with the Burning Man incident. Mark, tell everybody what Burning Man is.
It's weird to me, Kyle, that you just assume I know what Burning Man is. But
have you ever been?
No, but I'd like to one day.
I've never been either.
One day when it's not dusty or muddy like it was this year.
Yes. So okay, do you want to tell everybody what Burning Man is?
No, you did. You know for some reason more about it than I do.
So I've never been. I will say this. So for those of you that don't know what Burning Man is, well, first of all, go on Google and type in Burning Man
Yes.
and you'll figure it out real quick. But Burning Man is just an event that happens every year in August. I believe it's August, at the end of August. And it's out literally in the middle of the desert in Nevada, nowhere. And thousands and thousands of people attend this thing. And I know tickets are very expensive to go. It's a place for people to go live free and free loving. So I would encourage you to go on Google and type in Burning Man. There's a whole host of information online about it. Again, I've never been. You say you've never been.
No.
I have. I do know folks that have been. Sounds like a good, like I said, free loving time. So go check that out. But we're here to talk about the video that actually went viral on social media and online of an incident that happened during the Burning Man week. And that is some protesters set up some barricades in the middle of the desert on the highway that leading into Burning Man to prevent people from being able to attend it. And if you will play the video, and as you can see watching the video, this park ranger decided to literally plow his vehicle through this, I would say, small barricade. I mean, they have clearly you can see a trailer out here and a few protesters. Now, some of these protesters were chained up to the trailer, which kind of spun out of control. And you can see the officers driving up onto the hillside of the curb there to get turned around, jumps out of his truck, pulls his gun out and demands the protesters to get down on the ground. Obviously, the protesters were upset and, I wouldn't even say they were acting egregious, out of control. They're just standing there. And for this officer to behave like that, he's clearly way overwhelmed. He's taken this personally at this point.
Did anyone get that?
Yeah.
Carol,
You better move. You're gonna go there.
they're chained.
Get out now! Get out! On the ground! All of you on the ground now! Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Don't move!
We're environmental
I feel like there could have been a better way to handle this. And when we talk about cops, you know, bringing forth to light of, you know, excessive use of force and all these things, I mean, it's videos like this that don't really help the matter any, because, you know, here he is pulling his gun out on this lady who's literally chained to a trailer. She's clearly doesn't have any weapons on her, and he's pulling his gun on her basically at point blank range, ordering her to get down on the ground.
Yeah, I watched that, and he was very much emotionally driven. In a lot of the stuff that I've seen, they're very much supporting the actions of that officer, because quite frankly, people are tired of protest blocking roads and they're just pissed off. And finally you had an officer that did what everyone thinks cops should do. The reality is it should not happen. That was absolutely reckless and could really have hurt somebody. Looking at the video, there's miles and hundreds of vehicles that are stopped in the roadway going out to Black Rock, and it's most likely hot out there. So yeah, you are disrupting that. But to see him drive up, and he was literally on the loudspeaker saying, "I'm going to take all of you out. You better move." I mean, that just shows the mindset of how amped up he was. Siren is blaring, blows through that, gets out, and he is way amped up. He's tribal police, so things are a little different, but you can see the other officer that's there assisting him is very mellow and just kind of walking around. At one point, like past the officer on the back, like, "Hey, I'm here." To me, that's not acceptable. Like, that's a form of deadly force. You're blowing through that. You don't know how these people are actually attached to that trailer. And he is so emotionally connected to that. I'm not okay with this video at all. I don't like the tactic. I don't like what happened. I like the fact that, or I would like to have seen them stop, assess it at least, and figure out how these people are connected.
Yeah.
And then tell them, "Hey, we're going to drag this thing off the road," and then drag the stuff off the road and then deal with that. But to blow through that, to me, that's reckless.
Yeah. I mean, you had people chained to the actual trailer. So I agree, when he goes through the barricade and clearly, you know, plows through it, when he does the U-turn to come back around, I mean, you know, if he's so concerned about his safety, you know, he literally basically totals his truck going up kind of to do the U-turn over the mountain that you can see here, and basically rips the whole front bumper off of the vehicle to just to do a U-turn to engage with these people. So I agree. I think could have been handled a little differently. I think get a few more, you know, police officers there, rally up, come up with a quick little plan. Okay, let's kind of usher these people off the side of the road. If they don't want to comply, okay, well then it's time to handcuff people and move them off the side of the road. But to plow through the barricade like that with them chained to it and then say over the loudspeaker that he's going to take them out, I mean, you're using deadly force at that point on a non-deadly force situation. So had serious bodily injury occurred to one of those protesters, I think that cop would be in far more trouble than maybe he already is. You know, we don't know, but I always say, and we've talked about it, don't let your emotions dictate your tactics. And you might hear us say that a couple times during this show, is just because you're that upset, don't let those emotions play into the tactics that you're going to use to deal with a problem, right? I mean, that's when you really got to stop, slow yourself down. And if you're the partner on scene and you're seeing this type of behavior from another partner, like this guy in this video, the other officer that's there, he's definitely not wound as tight as the other officer. I mean, he's kind of walking around pretty casually. I don't know if he's maybe a little embarrassed, but if you're that guy or cop on scene, you may want to shoulder tap your buddy and, "Hey, dude, relax." Like, maybe you need to have that person go sit out for a little bit, but that's on you to do that. So if you see those things, I mean, you got to do that. You got to step up and do those things to protect, you know, potentially your buddy from doing something stupid.
Yep. That a lot of people have supported that, but quite frankly, I don't think that video and that tactic and that officer's response to that situation is acceptable in any way. Up next, we're going to talk about the 132 mile an hour pursuit that ended up going through downtown Atlanta that resulted in a pit and a collision.
Yeah.
So this video has been viral and it's been playing everywhere. It's all across social media. But when we dug into this and we did the research on it, it's really interesting. This actually came out, and the incident actually happened March 22nd of 2022. So this happened a long time. Well, I mean, a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
But now it's coming to light. What happened is the officer observed a high-speed vehicle. It was a BMW, which they visually projected the vehicle was doing 108 miles an hour, get behind it, try to stop it. Then they used the the LiDAR and then discovered that the vehicle ended up reaching speeds of 132 miles an hour. The whole pursuit only lasted just over 7 miles and went to some freeways and then ended up taking the off ramp where it was flying through downtown, blowing red lights. And you can hear in the video, the officers are riding in the car and he's saying, clear left, clear right. And they're blowing through red lights.
Yeah.
While the pursuit, the patrol car ends up pulling up next to it, does the pit maneuver at a high speed, and then spins the car out, and then it crashes into an SUV that's parked that has people in the car and then throws that car out into the street.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about that. And here's the thing, okay? I think this video went viral because you had two larger social media platforms posting this video, okay? Mm-hmm. I do want to give credit to Adam from Police Post. He posted the video as well and talked about the risk versus reward and why this was negligent on the officer's behalf. And we'll dive into that. But there's another social media platform who I'm not going to mention who posted the video and was giving the officers accolades for pitting the car at such high speeds and said that it was cool. Here's my issue with doing that. Okay. If you're a law enforcement training platform online and you have a large following, you have to understand that if you're going to be posting these things that are reckless and that could potentially put cops in prison or jail for doing something so reckless as this, and you're saying that it's cool, you're going to have a generation of cops that are going to start to think that those things are cool when they're not. And now you're basically putting these cops in a situation where in real life, should they be encountered in a situation like this, they're going to tell themselves that it's cool and they're not going to shut that down. So I want to hit on that real quick. Okay. Let's talk about it. So Mark, you said that the want for the vehicle was speed,
Speed and failure to use a blinker and unsafe lane change.
Okay. So we have traffic violations, right? Now you're talking highway speeds. Okay. I've been in several car chases, well excessive over 100 miles an hour on the freeway, middle of the night, minimal to no traffic. I can't say that I'm not okay with that, depending on what the one is. The moment you start reaching surface streets, I think that's when you really, really have to start to scale things back a little bit and seriously start self-assessing, like what exactly are you chasing? And the reality is you're in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. Clearly in this video, as you guys can see, we're watching it. This is a huge city and it's very populated and it's busy.
It's at 1 a.m.
So you got a lot of bars and stuff downtown. Yeah. Like there's a lot going on, right? And even at 1 o'clock in the morning, you can still see there's a decent amount of cars parked on the side of the street. The streets are narrow. And we know from working in downtown environments, it's not, the roads are very narrow. So we're not out on some like country roads where, there is no traffic. Okay. You're in a downtown populated area. When you brought up that, if you guys, we hear in the audio, the cop is saying clear right, clear left. When you're going that fast and speeds excessive, I would say well over 100 miles an hour. What if the intersection wasn't clear?
Yeah.
There's no way you're stopping in time.
To me, they're saying clear left, clear right is maybe for the camera, because you're not able to process and to see that. And the driver clearly is so focused on driving and following that car that your passenger is checking for traffic, which they should be doing. I mean, you have 4 eyes in the car at that point.
Right.
But if you, at the point when he's saying clear left, clear right, if you were to say clear left, car right, clear left, stop, no possibility could that patrol car have ever stopped. He would have creamed right through someone.
Yeah. Either they're going to get killed or whoever they hit are more than likely going to get seriously hurt or killed. And let's talk about that for a second. So, Wilson v. City of Atlanta. This is a court case that came out, where a plaintiff was struck by a vehicle that the cops were chasing and they suffered injuries. Basically there are several court cases that have gone up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically has come down and ruled that you really need, as the officer, need to weigh out the risk versus reward. What are you chasing, and what is the recklessness of the person trying to elude you? And what you really have to understand, and what the Supreme Court is saying, is that you can be held civilly liable if you are not driving within due regard of the safety of the public. Meaning, no matter what it is that you're chasing, if the recklessness of the driver outweighs the reward, and you as the officer are not driving within due regard of the public safety, no matter what, you can be held civilly liable should somebody get hurt or killed.
So listen to this, Kyle. This is quoted from the officer's report. The officer said the driver drove in a reckless manner, reaching speeds of 140 miles an hour, making improper lane changes, failing to signal, and failure to maintain his lane. And then he says the driver showed a total disregard for public safety. But you're saying the same exact thing about the officer.
So exactly. Is that proper to document for the purposes of the report and to show that the suspect is driving without due regard to the public safety? Absolutely. But that doesn't give you the right to drive without due regard to the public safety as well. So I this is where I can appreciate police posted is that, you know, he's trying to say, look, the risk versus reward on this, it's just not adding up, not even remotely close. And it's to save cops from going to prison, because had those cops hit somebody and killed them or seriously hurt them, they're going to go to jail. They are going to prison because you cannot articulate that you were driving within due regard of public safety when you're yourself are driving 100 miles an hour through an intersection, through a red light. And quite frankly, I don't even care if it's a green light.
No,
you can't go through an intersection that fast without properly clearing it. So the whole point behind this is, you know, you got one aspect out there saying that it's cool. And then you got another platform out there saying, hey, it's not cool. And we don't want cops to be doing things that are going to get somebody killed, either themselves or somebody of the public. And in these court cases, if you know, I would encourage you guys to go research them. There have been people that have been killed as a result of vehicle pursuits. And the one thing the courts are going to look at is, what were you chasing? Why were you chasing it? And what were the driving conditions? Unfortunately, if you want to go out there and put it out there that you're just going to get lucky and that no one's going to crash, then you're hinging on that. You're hinging your freedom and everything you own on the fact that you just hope that it goes your way. But what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't go your way? And in this instance, the cop decides to pit that vehicle. After the car came to a slow to clear an intersection, the car accelerated, the cop accelerated. They're still going at a pretty decent speed. He decides to pit that car. And I mean, on a narrow, busy downtown street where clearly the car that it hit was occupied because the brake lights are on. I don't know. I mean,
here's where I struggle with that is you have an officer in the car, and then the driver of that patrol car that did the pit maneuver was a sergeant.
Yeah, he's ultimately the one making decisions out there, should be telling cops to or not to pursue vehicles. So here's the thing. You know as well as I do, you've been in several vehicle pursuits. I have too. You do get kind of wrapped up in the moment of, you know, chasing the rabbit. And I totally understand that. But for you folks out there that are listening to this and you are thinking about maybe wanting to get into special duty assignments, you know, especially a lot of liability behind it, you want to be able to show that you can make conscious decisions when you should pull back from something. Okay. And pursuits are a really good example of that. I mean, if you're in a car chase and things are getting to be a little bit out of control and you yourself can cancel yourself off of that vehicle chase, that goes a long way with people, especially administrators. I mean, you're out there demonstrating that you can see the risk and that you can pull yourself back from the risk, that you're not so invested and emotionally invested in it that you're just going to keep on going because you just want to catch the bad guy or you want to chase the rabbit. Look, as a supervisor, you know, I look for things like that in candidates that are testing for things that I've been directly supervised of the unit that I'm in now, and then canine units. You have to be able to make those decisions. And if you can't do those things, then you're going to start to gain that reputation that you're reckless and you can't, you know, reel yourself in. And when you start to test for certain assignments, I think you're going to have a hard time being able to sell that because unfortunately people recognize those things.
Yep. And I think I'll end on the public expects better decision-making than that. And your family could be out there sitting in that car or getting ready to do that crosswalk, running crossing when they shouldn't, but thinking that a car isn't going to be coming at 100 miles an hour. So this video is one that went viral and it's continuing to go viral. It's hitting a lot of different social media aspects.
And again, we're not, some people may look at that and they think that it is cool. And then, some agencies out there are very overly aggressive with chasing people. Hey, that's fine. There's every agency has their own policy on pursuits. Regardless of the policy, I truly think that the risk is always going to outweigh the reward, and you constantly have to evaluate that. Just because your department allows you to do it, you still need to evaluate what you're doing, and you make that conscious decision to scale back.
Yep, that's a wild one. All right, we got another viral video. What's up next, Kyle? What do we got?
All right, so this next one is again, it's out of Georgia. What's going on, Georgia? Come on, guys.
Yeah.
This video, actually, more or less, it was a photograph that definitely went viral, and that was the Georgia state trooper who pitted the gentleman who was involved in a sideshow, ran some pedestrians over, and it was a very short vehicle pursuit that ensued after the fact. And this trooper used his vehicle to a pit maneuver again to stop the truck. Gets out of his patrol car, jumps over the hood of his car, and rips the driver out of that car, detains him on the hood of his patrol car, which somebody happened to be there and took a photo of it. I'm sure you guys all saw it. We're looking at it right now. And again, you've got a couple different outlets out there on social media saying, hey, this is, really cool. Georgia's probably never going to have another shortage of officers again. Look, again, I'm not trying to sit here and be the Debbie Downer of all this stuff. We are, like, we say it all the time. Like, we try to take these videos and these photos and like truly give you like an unbiased opinion and not emotionally invest ourselves in how cool things look or turn out to be. We just try to evaluate it based on, tactics, what went right and what could have been done a little bit differently, because I'll pitch this to you. Did that look cool? Yeah, it did. It looked really cool. I mean, the guy looked like a fucking badass, jumping over the hood of the car, ripping the dude out of the truck and handcuffing him, right? By himself, all by himself, right? But what if he didn't? What if that driver pulled out a gun and shot that officer in the face? Are you going to say that it's cool then? Because those things happen all the time. And it's happened here in our own hometown where we work. Several officers have been shot and killed here for doing things like that. And you just can't sit back and go, okay, well, that was really cool. And now you're promoting other officers to do that and behave like that. And then that one time when someone decides that they're not going to go with the program, pull out a gun and shoot you in the face when you're running up to their car. So let's talk a little bit about, there's a lot of trending videos right now on social media where cops are rushing up to cars after a pursuit is over, not using their cars for cover to call people out. So what's your take on it?
Well, after it went viral, news outlets reached out to that agency, and then a captain came on and was quoted saying this. Captain Michael Burns quoted saying, "The trooper performed a pit maneuver and forced the F-150 over a curb, disabling the vehicle. A felony stop was conducted and the driver was taken into custody." He then later said, quote, "The trooper followed his training," and then again says, "Once the driver fled the scene, it was important to get the driver stopped so there wouldn't be further damage." I have a problem with all of what he said, but I watched that video, Kyle, a lot, multiple times. And here's my perspective of that. There's a sideshow. That truck is doing donuts at an intersection. There's spectators everywhere. That's a risk that is involved in that. The truck gets ready to leave, and out of nowhere, here comes that state trooper in kind of like a slick top type of vehicle, the lights and siren. There's a lot going on at that intersection, and the truck drives off. I'm not 100% convinced that truck was going pursuit. I think the truck processed like what was happening. There's someone behind him. Then he realizes it's a patrol car. But at that point, the truck kind of like jukes like left and right, and then the patrol kind of car kind of jukes left and right, and it's a short distance. And then the pit maneuver is done. I'm not convinced that truck was going to go pursuit. And here's my thought on officer safety. I've made traffic stops in situations where there's a big crowd and it's scary. And that's not smart. I would rather have followed that truck a little further and got away from that crowd, because that crowd is supporting that. They're watching those donuts. I would have preferred that officer follow that truck away a little bit and then make a stop, but he didn't. And this is where we're at. And then he jumps out and jumps up on the hood of the car with his gun out. I don't like that either, because you have your gun and you're trying to do this maneuver and getting up on a hood, hoping you don't drop your gun. You don't need your hand placement someplace. And then you're using one of your free hands to grab a hold of somebody. We don't know what that guy's capabilities were in that truck. He could have shot him, or he could be decided to fight the officer. And now you're fighting an officer with a gun out on the hood of a car. Like, there's no good scenario in that. That was careless to me. I'm not sure what training he was following. That was just wild. And to be honest, I think the officer got very lucky that crowd didn't surround him and do like a rescue of that suspect. But ultimately, that suspect that was arrested for felony hit and run, felony evading, and then
a host of felonies. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he ended up, I think it was 10 people he ended up hitting with this truck. One was serious injuries,
which is terrible. I mean, here's the reality of these sideshows. I mean, we get a lot of them, around here in this area. And I'm telling you, that's not something you want to show up to by yourself. That's not even something you want to show up to with 5 or maybe 10 other cops. I mean, that takes a lot of resources, because you're right. Though the crowd will turn on you in a heartbeat, and you said it, they're there to support that type of activity. Am I supporting or are we supporting that? These folks that got ran over? No, I'm not. We're absolutely not supporting that. That's tragic. And people do get hurt at these types of events quite often. And the reality is he needed to be stopped. Okay. So a truck driving in that manner, he needs to be stopped. I agree with you. I'm not so sure I would have wanted to do that in that moment, but let's just take it back and say that he had to do that in that moment. I hope he had more resources there available to him to immediately react. But one thing with these sideshows is you gotta have resources for those things. And if you want to kind of be the hero in the whole, your own story, and go out there by yourself and target these locations, if you know they're going to happen, I just would strongly advise not doing that. If you know these things are going to occur, or they do occur quite often, then I would get as much backup as you possibly can. If you have air units available, get the air unit up, get the license plate of that vehicle. You can go later and write warrants and seize these vehicles for 30 plus days and get them that way. But if you're out there trying to enforce those laws on your own or in small numbers, be very careful because he is very lucky that crowd did not emerge on him. And I probably think the only reason they didn't was because he did plow all those pedestrians over. Mm-hmm. And those people even probably thought, okay, this guy needed to be stopped, which he did. And so using the whole police vehicle as a technique to pit or police intervention technique to basically essentially ram a vehicle in a strategic way. There is case law on that, and that is the courts rule that is reasonable, right? If you have to use your police vehicle to basically be an interdiction device to stop a moving vehicle, then that's fine to do. But let's use our cars as cover when we're either at the conclusion of a vehicle pursuit and you use a pit maneuver, or even at the conclusion of any pursuit. If a car stops on its own, I don't know why there's all these videos out there, the need to rush up to these cars. And it to me, it all circles back to emotions, and cops are letting their emotions dictate their tactics. And I can't stress that enough. I see it all the time. You can't allow yourself to do that. If you are in a pursuit, and let's say, however long it is, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Okay. Make it up. And that car comes to a stop and that person doesn't want to get out of that car. Okay.
Yeah.
You have a vehicle barricade at this point, and we have tools and things that we can use to get people out of a car very easily without having to approach it. So the thought of this person is trying to elude you for whatever reason, maybe you don't know, oftentimes you don't know, it now comes to a stop. And then your first thought is to run up to the car with zero cover to try to rip someone out of a car. Again, I'm going to say it again. We've lost cops in this area for doing things like that. And so we don't promote it. We don't advocate it. Again, I want to give a shout out to a couple social media platforms out there who are advocating not to do those things. And again, police posts. And then another is Kinetic Concepts. So if you guys don't follow them on Instagram, go on there and follow them. They're constantly providing training tips and playing these videos for you. Don't pay attention to the pages that are putting this stuff out there and they're promoting this stuff and they're saying that it's cool. Don't jump on that bandwagon because I'm here to tell you, folks, you're setting yourself up for failure if that's the case. Because if you get into a bad situation, the people that run that social media site are not going to come and save you, and they're not going to testify on your behalf. So think about that.
Yep. I think all three of those videos, Wild Pursuits, Pits, were emotionally driven.
Yeah.
All right. We got one more. Drones.
Yep.
Are they invading privacy? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I think we came across this article that we noticed had been trending, and it actually came out of New York, and New York basically came out, and said over Labor Day weekend this past weekend, the NYPD was going to be using drones to fly over people's backyards and neighborhoods and monitor backyard parties. Now, when you first read that, when I first read that, I thought, well, there's no way in hell. That's a total invasion of privacy and rights and everything else. And we wanted to do a little bit of research in that because obviously people were upset about it, rightfully so. So we reached out to a good friend, Nick Fox, who we've actually had on the episode before, who knows all things drones. He's an expert and was actually involved in a webinar with several other agencies involved, and learned over the weekend, Beverly Hills PD here in California also did the same thing. However, we learned that Beverly Hills PD decided to message it a little bit differently. And the message that Beverly Hills PD put out versus New York PD is that the drones were being used to augment patrol. So people were all up in arms that the police departments were flying drones around aimlessly around neighborhoods and in people's backyard, invading their privacy. And at first glance, yeah, I disagree with that. You said you disagree with that. I can't imagine anybody would agree with, police departments being able to do that. And legally, you're not allowed to do that. The message that Beverly Hills put out was that the drones are there to augment patrol, meaning just like everywhere across the nation, police departments are short-staffed. That is no secret. We're dealing with it at the agency that I work at, and all across the country, agencies are short-staffed. Where the drones come into play is that if an officer isn't able to get out to a call for service right away, they can deploy a drone from any location and fly out to that call for service and get eyes on it. And should an officer need to go out to the call, they then would dispatch an officer to the call based on whatever the drone sees. So the drones were just there to augment patrol, respond to call for services, and get basically a long eye on whatever was going on and determine whether or not a cop was needed to respond out there or not, which is actually a great tool because, oftentimes we have air units in the area that we work here, and, the air unit can fly over a call and whatever it is and say, hey, either it's active or it's not active, and patrol can cancel or whatever. Same thing goes with a drone. You could always deploy a drone out to a call, and, if the drone gets there and whoever's operating it sees the camera that, okay, well, whatever the caller said was going on isn't going on anymore, then let's not tie up our resources and we can clear that call out without even having to send a patrol person there. So,
yeah, and I think that's what we learned from talking with Nick is Beverly Hills did a good job media-wise messaging that, and New York did not do a great job. In the media took it a different direction, where New York was actually using those to clear calls for service, keeping officers free to respond to more higher priority calls. Yeah.
So overall, I think it's a good idea. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that at all. So if you guys like this form of content that we are putting together, more news related topics and videos that are trending or going viral, please drop a comment down below. Let us know what you want to see. Head over to our website, shotsfiredpodcast.org. You can reach out to us there, or head over to our social media page, Shots Fired Podcast Official. You can send us a DM, and we try to respond back to everybody. We thank you for watching. Hit the like button if you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys on the next video.
See ya.